Hey everybody, how we doing? It is Wednesday, January 8th, 2024. This is the College Countdown with your host, Josh Neighbors, on the Rogue Media Networks. Glad to have you with us. We're one day away from the college football playoff semifinals, which asks the question, who has the most on the line in the CFP semifinals? Could be a program, could be a team, could be a coach, could be any of those things. So we'll talk about that. Follow us on Twitter at CCPodcastJN. I'm at Josh Neighbors _. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Like the video, sub to the channel, all of that stuff. It really helps a lot. Okay, so who has the most on the line? I've been doing the Ryan Day bit for the last 3 weeks about Ryan Day having the most on the line. And I guess that's kind of true because it feels like, it's like either we win or it's a public execution when you're Ohio State fans, and it shouldn't be like that. And I don't like fan bases that are like that. But they feel like because of how good their team has shown they can be, that it is win or else. It really does feel like it's kind of stepping up the extra direction, extra, right? That's kind of where it's headed. It's how things go there. But I kind of want to push that one off the side, or maybe I put that one third or fourth, whatever. But I think the number one person, entity, whatever, I think it's Quinn Ewers. I really think it's Quinn Ewers because, and some of this is actually not his fault. So the reason why I say Quinn Ewers has the most to prove, most on the line, is because I think last game he played well, and I don't think he got any credit for playing well. And it's crazy to me the way people talk and view Quinn Ewers, because I think, and I'm not sure I'm right about him. But I feel pretty clearly about Quinn Ewers. I think he's a very good player, and I think he's got really good talent. I think he's got a fantastic arm, and he plays well, and he delivers two amazing throws into the game. The way I view Quinn Ewers, with the way Sark has called plays, it set him up pretty well. And he's clearly a better thrower than Arch Manning, because Arch Manning would be playing a lot more often. And so I think Quinn Ewers played really well last game, and he's going to have to do it well again this game to get some respect. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate. He'll be either somewhere else next year or in the draft. We'll have to see what happens. But, it's odd to me when people are like, this guy stinks. And now I was listening to Cover 3 the other day. They ranking the quarterbacks 1 through 4 left in the playoff, and they're all putting Quinn Ewers third or fourth. And I definitely think I'd rather have Quinn Ewers than Riley Leonard. For what Notre Dame does, Riley Leonard's perfect because he's just kind of the grinder, get things done, whatnot. But as a quarterback in general, I'd rather have Quinn Ewers. I feel like Will Howard has been super inconsistent. I think Drew Hour's the best of the bunch. I actually don't think there's any disagreement about that. I think Drew Hour's best of the bunch. And I'm interested to see, my buddy Preston brought this up. Actually, it is a great point, so I want to shout out my buddy Preston Jacks. I want to bring up the fact that he said, hey, if Drew Hour wants to go to the draft this year, he'd still probably be a first-round pick, definitely be a first-round pick, and he'd probably be pretty high. So I think it's I think that'd be interesting if he decided to do that and go. But, I think he's the best of the bunch. But, yeah, Quinn Ewers has, played pretty well, and he led them on 4 really important drives. 2 ended in missed field goals, and then they had back-to-back touchdown plays, 4th and 13. The guys won big games before. And so I think it's just odd to me. People treat him like he is this scrub. And, yeah, the interceptions have been a few more than this year, but he's been sacked the same amount of times as he was last year, and they think they've played more games at this point. He's got 7 more touchdowns. The yardage is down, but the receivers are not as good, and completion percentage-wise, attempted a few more throws. It's kind of negligent, but he's only down 2 points. So he's kind of all in this margin. The only thing that's up is the picks, right? And they're not always all his fault. Yeah, but I mean, the running stuff has, been a little bit worse this year, but it's still, I don't think that's a huge issue. And so is he making massive leaps and massive bounds from where he was last year? No, I think upstairs will be the big, difference at the NFL level. Can he read the field and see the field that well? Because it does seem like he misses guys sometimes. But Will Howard will stare dudes down and make bad throws. I've seen it, did it at K-State, made bad decisions. Does it at Ohio State? Riley Leonard is not a fantastic passer. Hours had his fair share of mistakes, but man, has he gotten a lot better. He's really, really good. I think he's kind of the real deal when it comes to an NFL prospect. And so, I just, it's crazy to me the amount of flack that he takes, especially with a running game that has been in transition all year because of what they lost. You think about the last 2 seasons and when Quinn Ewers has played, right? Quinn Ewers, he played back in 2022, and then he played back in 2023, then 2024. And you think about what Texas had at the running back position. Last year's first year, it wasn't Bijan Robinson, but man, Jonathan Brooks did everything for them. And having a guy who's that solid, 1,100 yards and 6.1 yards a touch, 10 touchdowns, and Baxter at 138 carries. He's 4.8, and Jaden Blue 65. He's 6.1 a carry. Like Keelan Robinson too. They had this really nice, obviously number one punch with Brooks, and then Baxter and Blue. Like they had all those guys. Their running game this year has been they had the injuries, but man, like Quintravion Wisner, is less than 5 yards a carry. 5 touchdowns. Jaden Blue, 130 carries and 8 touchdowns in the year. But it's not like it's some massive explosive running game, right? 4 carries for 4 yards for Blue against ASU, 14 for 146 against Clemson, but they couldn't run the ball effectively against Georgia. They didn't run the ball super effectively against Texas A&M, right? So it's been Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to their running game this year. And that's made it difficult. And also they don't have the diversity in targets that they had last year. When you think about last year's Texas team, think about the fact that at wide receiver, you've got a big play guy, A.D. Mitchell, big game, big play guy, and A.D. Mitchell, right? Nearly 1,000 yards receiver, 11 touchdowns. You've got Xavier Worthy, who's got that speed, over 1,000 yards, 5 scores. Jatavion Sanders at tight end, it was a tank, over nearly 700 yards. Jordan Whittington went over 500 yards last year, and, it was a huge part of what they did. Gunnar Helm last year was the second tight end they had on that team, and he was – we're seeing what he's doing this year. And then Jonathan Brooks was very good out of the backfield as well. So they had all these targets. They had a balanced offense as well. And Ewers, as you get older, they should put more on your shoulders. But it can be challenging because you don't have that variety in targets. They don't have the size they had last year. Look at this, the receiving core this year, got some serious speed, yes. But Matthew Golden's their leading wide receiver in terms of yardage this year. He is not, to me, like this physical freak. He's 6 foot 195. He's got really good hands and he's very good at getting it open, but came from Houston. You know what I mean? He's a transfer guy. And he's one of those just quality receivers overall, but like not the physical specimen. Then you go to Gunnar Helm, right? Tight end for them. Isaiah Bond, who has been good for them this year. He's had the injuries and whatnot, but he's a smaller guy. He's a speedster, right? That's kind of his big thing, is his speed. And in the last 3 games they played, it didn't catch a ball last week. Last 3 games though, and I think he said he was playing a decoy. He said 4 catches. Last 4 games he said 4 total catches. The injuries have kept him away. Ryan Wingo, they've given some more responsibility to, but once again, he's a young guy, right? He's a good, young wide receiver. Had 2 catches for 33 yards in the last game, but this is a guy that, the most amount of catches that he's had in a game, against an SEC opponent, the Power 4 opponent, is 3, right? He had 3 against Georgia, he had 3 against Vanderbilt, and he had 2 last week and 2 against Clemson. So he's just not quite ready, which is totally okay because he's such a young guy, but he's 6'2", 210. I think he's going to be a really good player. So, and I'm not making all these excuses just for Quinn Ewers, and the other guys too. DeAndre Moore has been strong for them this year as well. He's just a sophomore too. So catch a touchdown last week, caught a touchdown against Georgia in the game. He was fantastic there. I'm not saying they don't have good players. A lot of teams would trade their receiving core for Texas's. Just saying that this is not as good of a surrounding cast as they had last year. But I think that he deserves some more appreciation. Is Quinn Ewers perfect? No, but I think he's played very well this year. And I think a lot of stuff gets put on the Texas quarterback. I think a lot of blame gets put on Quinn Ewers because he makes some bad choices sometimes. I think a lot of blame also gets put on him because the offense does not look like it's just, they can't swarm teams the way they did in the past. They did it a bit to Clemson, but you look at these, everything they've done since the Florida game, 20 points, 17 points, 19 points, 38 points, 39 points, but they needed double overtime to do it. And they had a kick return last week. So, 21 of the points they scored last week came kick return and then extra time. So, it's not like, in regulation, you're putting up that many points. And he keeps them on track. They're winning games. It's because their defense is so good. Yes, but let's not act like he sucks. I'm kind of over this because I think he's being put in a place. It's unfair right now. All right. Number 2, Penn State. They got a ton on the line here because they got a real, this is a chance. I know talent is now more spread out than it's ever been before because of the portal. That's good. Right. But this team in particular has a chance to do something incredibly significant. And there's no guarantee you're going to be back. I know that Penn State is not, they are not, what a TCU is, right? They're not going to drop all the way down. But you got a really good offensive coordinator. You got a really good defense. You got a quarterback that looks like a real guy. You had a good path. And in this game, you're a 2.5 point dog, but I'm going with Penn State in this game. Like, this is your chance. And the thing is that it's hard to beat a team twice, but you did have Ohio State dead to rights. You know you can hang with them. You know you can get a pass rush on them. Covering them, yeah, good luck. Right? So, in Texas, you'd rather play Texas. But, like, you got the best quarterback left. You'd think so. Best player left is Jeremiah Smith. There's no doubt about that. Best player is on Ohio State. But Penn State, man, this is your chance. And look, just making a national championship game would be a huge accomplishment for them, especially against this Notre Dame team. They can scheme stuff up and get in good positions, make things happen. And so I think about who has the most in the line, that top 3, like, it is 3 to me. Ryan Day is 3rd because it's the damned if you do, you haven't looked good enough. And once again, the game plan against Michigan was not strong enough. Damn if you don't look good enough. But when you look really good, it's like, well, we expect this every game. That's not how college players operate. It's not how it's going to be. And so Ryan Day, the pressure's on him every single week because people expect so much, from this team, right? And I think that's kind of a big part of this. They're expecting so much. So I would say those 3 in that order. I would say Quinn Ewers, number 1, Ryan Day, number 2, because I think Texas will be back in this spot. I would say Ryan Day, number 2, James Franklin and Penn State, number 2. And then number 3, I would put Ryan Day. Marcus Freeman, you beat Kirby Smart. Backup quarterback, sure, but, like, do we think there's a massive drop-off from Gunnar Stockton? Do we think there's some huge kind of drop-off from Gunnar Stockton to, whoever's behind, right? Whoever's behind him. Carson Beck. If there's some huge drop-off between Carson Beck and Gunnar Stockton, maybe there is, but, like, didn't feel like it was that appreciable. And the players raved about how much harder they play for Gunnar Stockton. Maybe it's semantics, whatever. But they got that win. That's huge. Notre Dame's, like, kind of arriving back. And if they keep recruiting this way, they're going to be in good shape. I think you could easily replicate a team this good again. Like, this is not like, this is your chance. You got the right quarterback. Like, you've got a quarterback whose best quality is not putting your team in long down and distances. And so because of that, I think I feel like Notre Dame can do this again. And Marcus Freeman kind of cashed in already. Did a great job, I think, with that. So, yeah. I think it's pretty, I think it's pretty good list. Let me know if you all feel differently about it. Couple notes here. Tyler Van Dyke is going to SMU. Man, it's been what a journey for him. Up and down, all around. Kevin Jennings seems like he's a guy next year, but Tyler Van Dyke brings you some veteran insurance for them in 2025. I think that's good. And then Jalen Milroe going to the National Football League. I think Jalen Milroe to the NFL is probably the right decision for him. You see this in basketball a whole lot, right? The best place to go and improve and get ready for the NBA is the NBA. A lot of times you'll see guys play in college basketball and, like, they'll refine skills, but, like, what you'll end up being in the NBA, like Grant Williams, good example at Tennessee. Grant Williams was a post player. Grant Williams was a back to the basket guy. And that's who he was in college, 2-time SEC player of the year. He's a 3-and-D guy in the NBA. That's who he ended up being. Julius Randle, was a post player at Kentucky. He ends up being kind of this, like, weird, kind of combination forward thing, right? Daniel Gafford, always an energy guy, more focal point of the offense when he was in college, like, just all that kind of stuff. You kind of see, how things happen, and the NBA, like, they'll turn you into that as soon as you get there. I think for Milroe, that's the case too. The thing for Jalen Milroe is, if you're finding a place for Justin Fields, you should find a place for Jalen Milroe. He's that good of an athlete. He's always, like, the fastest guy in the field. It's the computing stuff upstairs for him that gets really difficult, and it's going to take some time. I haven't heard like anything bad about him as like a teammate. People seem to like him a lot, and everybody says he works hard. It's just, it's a feast or famine. Like sometimes he looks like the best player in the entire country, and sometimes he looks like crap. And I've always said this about him, is that if Jalen Milroe was an average passer, he's like the toughest player in the country to stop. He's not consistently, though, an average passer. And that is the problem. And that offense was bogged down. So I think for Milroe, like maybe this is the right move. He's got to land in the right spot, but I'll be interested to see because he'll test out of this world. And look, Jalen Hurts, second round pick. He's kind of almost got that Jalen Hurts vibe. Jalen Hurts not quite as fast as Jalen Milroe, probably a bit stronger, but Jalen Milroe can stick. I mean, he can hit people. So I think it's the right move for Jalen Milroe to go to the NFL. I really do. All right, that will do it for today's show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. I'm at @JoshNeighbors_. You guys can find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, love all that stuff. All right, folks, we'll talk to you all mañana.
We are Rogue Media Sports.